Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show which discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Our show believes that all women everywhere should be treated with respect at all times. Here's today's guest moderator, Jeff DeZellar.
Hello, my name is Jeff DeZellar, and welcome to It's a Woman's World. I'll be your guest moderator today, substituting for Nadia Giordana. And joining me today are my co-hosts, Beverly Crosby. Hello, Beverly. Pleased to see you.
Nice to be here.
And Janita Flowers. Hi, Janita. It's
Hello.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And Rashida Fisher.
Hello.
Rashida.
Very nice to be here.
And last but not least, our guest, Katy DeZellar,
Hi.
who I'm very, very proud to say is my daughter. And Katy's a photographer and animal lover, and basically she's here to talk about her photography.
So welcome, Katy. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in photography.
I've been doing photography probably since I was 3, when I was given like a little film camera as a kid, and then it just continued to advance as I grew older and older with better cameras. I got my own like big digital camera in high school, and then I went into college and continued with that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I hear that the bug and the interest in photography is a family tradition here.
Yeah, yeah. My dad took photos probably in 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yep.
And gave me a camera, and I used his camera back in middle school and elementary school and stuff.
So awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're going to highlight some of your photo series today, but tell me, what is your favorite genre to photograph?
Well, the school I went to, UW Milwaukee, their photo program is mostly fine art based, so I think that's mostly what I like to do, like getting an idea in my head and making a project out of it.
And so when you say fine art, for those of us who aren't completely adept to photography lingo, is that when you like maybe are in an architectural structure and you're making that into artwork? Is it when you're out on the street and you see a special light and you make that light look like artwork? Like when you say fine art photography, describe that a little bit more.
I think it can, like with any art, it can be really anything that you want. Most of them are based around a project idea, and then you stick to that and kind of form the photos out of that idea. But other times the photos, you just take them and then they create a project within themselves.
And fine art is always a series of photographs. It's never usually like just one. It's usually...
It can be one, but I think generally in contemporary photography now, it's generally a series of photography.
And as I've learned as an artist myself and photographer, video, all of that, what I understand is that, Katy, the difference is that you're painting with light or you're painting with a brush. But every image has a story. Mm-hmm. And when we look at a photo, we should feel something, or we should, we should, wonder what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak. And it looks like today we've been able to view your gallery of images, and you're going to explain each one of them to us.
Yeah.
And what they represent.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first series that we're going to talk about is my main series on this day, which is about the mass shootings in the United States. Just to start out, these 2 pillows are placed in the scenes of the locations of the mass shootings. I use the blue pillow to represent the number of people that were killed, and then the orange pillow as those that were injured. Because there's so many shootings in the U.S., I had to narrow down the numbers, so I had to create my own criteria to narrow that down because there are so many. And that criteria can be found on my website. But with the first photo, Sandy Hook, I think everyone has probably heard about that. I don't know if you have any questions about that.
Well,
So,
you know,
go ahead.
what I like is that you have taken a topic and an issue that is still very relevant. We hear blurbs in the news quite regularly about mass shootings, and it feels like it's the story of the moment, you know. And with your pieces here, we have the opportunity to really take some time to remember why this issue through your work is so important to stay at the forefront of our minds.
I think a lot of people nowadays, because they hear it so much in the news, they're starting to become numb, and they're like, oh, just another mass shooting, and they don't really realize that there are so many. And I've taken or gone to a lot of the locations of ones that would have only been in like the local news because they were in the 90s or something before these were really prominent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process of getting into this photograph. So Sandy Hook Elementary, and then we have the West Nickel Mines Amish School in Pennsylvania. So you step onto the campus. What are you feeling? How do you know what you want to photograph? Like, tell me about the process of when you decide on the location, and then how you pick where on the campus you're going to focus your series of photos.
Well, with Sandy Hook, we had to go pretty quickly. We had to get permission because it is such a sensitive subject. And this is actually the new school that they built because they tore down the original. So we arrived probably 3 days after that opened. So they were still like really sensitive. So I just kind of wanted to get straight on plain view of the location and not really make it anything super special, just show the space as it is, because part of the idea behind the project is that this can happen anywhere at any time, and it's not like in any sort of special place. Like with the Amish school, that was in the middle of nowhere. And they tore down the school there too, so now it's just a field. And another I think interesting thing with that one in particular is that the shooter was a male, but he only shot the females that were in the school. So I thought that was really interesting, and yeah. And then also Columbine, I think, was the first big mass shooting that people started to think about and actually talk about creating gun laws and stuff. But then they've just continued since then. And then I think Sandy Hook kind of sparked that again, but still nothing. Yeah.
Well, I know that your images, there's a message in each one of them, and there may be an overall message, as you just explained to us. But one of the questions that comes to my mind is, how did you get a pass to go in, a media pass to go in to actually take these images?
Well, like with the Amish school, since it's on public land and out in the open, I didn't need to ask any permission, so I could just take it from the road. But then Columbine High School, I had to talk to the current principal, who isn't the principal that was there at the time, but I had to continue asking him and show him that I was very serious about it, because they get a lot of like sightseers and stuff. So I think he finally realized that I was very serious, and he gave me access. And this is actually at the back of the building, and he showed me around and all the remodeling that they've done since then and stuff.
Do they talk about the security protocols now within the buildings? Like, I think about when I take my children to school, and like when I was growing up, my parents could come to my classroom. Even when my kids were really young, you could go to their classroom. But now, like in most schools, you can't go to classrooms. You know, you kind of filter off to the side to go where the office is. I mean, it's very secure because schools want to make sure we're trying to keep our students safe. Do they talk about what it was like before the shooting at any of these schools, and then what it was like, and maybe it was mostly Columbine where you actually had access to the staff? Is the culture different where they're coming into the school? Are they still open, or is it pretty much a kind of a closed community and we don't let people in? How is that feeling there?
Well, with Sandy Hook, I wasn't allowed to go into the school. That was one of their protocols, I guess, because I was a stranger. But then Columbine, I was able to kind of walk around the school with the principal, and it wasn't during school time, it was in the summer, so there wasn't really anyone there. I'm sure it would have been different if it was during school, but it looked like they probably put in a whole, like, you have to kind of walk through the office area and sign in and stuff to be able to actually get into the school. So that's probably changed.
Well, a lot of that, would you say a lot of that was from Sandy Hook, that caused schools to change their security?
I think originally it was Columbine, because I know when I was in elementary school they started to change the protocol. Like, they started teaching us how to do lockdowns and stuff, and like cover up the windows and hide. I think that just escalated even more, and like with like workplace shootings, they're now teaching how to deal with an active shooter situation and stuff at workplaces. Like this other photo, Hartford distributors. A lot of people probably haven't heard about that one, but that's a workplace shooting of a disgruntled employee that just got fired, and then he shot up the place. And with this project, I found that most of the shooting locations have actually been at workplace instead of like schools, which is where we hear most of the news.
I was lucky enough to be able to be with Katy on that East Coast trip, and at the distributor, I remember particularly the individual that showed us around actually had been wounded in the shooting, and so he had survivor's guilt because why me and why are these other people, passed away. But he also, didn't he mention the importance of having the pillows out in front of the site as, what did he say again?
I don't remember exactly what he said.
A way to remember the victims, because a lot of times you see the scene and, okay, that's just a building or a lawn or whatever, but this shows that there are people behind this, because he mentioned people forget, that anything happened if you're not in that immediate area.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I wanted to put a physical intervention sort of thing to show the physical numbers of people is because when you just see a number on like a news story, it's just a number and it doesn't resonate as actual people. So I think this gives a good visual to how many there actually are, and they kind of, it sounds harsh, but it kind of looks like dead bodies, like little dead bodies around. So yeah.
It makes it real. I mean, it's, it's not just a building, it's not just this story where there was a lot of fanfare and now that's in Wikipedia. It really is lives behind each one of those pillows. There's families, there's friends, there's so much that happens that we never talk about, or that we talk about it because we have this 24-hour news cycle, it's gone, like you were saying. Right. So I think it adds another layer of sensitivity, and just from my perspective, that you really respect this particular area. It's not just to have some photo that's on the internet. It really is to capture and actually bring something to life, like, so people are always thinking about there's more to it than what you read or what you heard in that 24-hour news cycle. It's families that are still dealing with it.
Yeah, and can you, for me, the colors are really vibrant, and they're, drastically different from one another. Can you tell me if there was any rationale or draw to these particular colors to represent fatalities and injuries?
Well, for blue, generally blue in art is like somber and sad. And then with the orange, that's generally like throughout everything, like a warning kind of color. So it's like they weren't killed, but they were still like in it, and
yeah, I really
I'm
like
looking
that.
at the next ones, the creative trust photos. I find it very interesting. There's a lot of, you can tell each one has their story. What are you trying to say with these here photos, or what do these photos say to the audience?
Well, these are actually part of my freelance photography. It's with the Creative Trust Student Artists in Residence, which is a program in Milwaukee area and Wisconsin. It's where college students, particularly art students, go into these elderly residence homes, and they live there amongst the residents and try to get them more interested in art and do art workshops. So I would capture those, and it would get elderly people to interact with younger generations and with each other and art. And yeah, it's a really great program. I worked with it for 2 years. So.
And what was the thought behind capturing it as a photo series? Was it showing the intergenerational connections between seniors and students? Was it celebrating something? How did you come to this particular topic?
Well, I was actually asked to photograph for it in the program, so I would go to each workshop and just like capture what they were doing and just candid photos. But as these photos themselves, I think it really shows the happiness that this kind of, well, like the first photo, that's Erin, and she was living in a Jewish home, and she would interact and make friends, and it just like shows how happy it makes these elderly people to like be friends with these younger people and stuff.
When I look at these photos, you can see people are happy. They're having a good time.
Yeah.
They're having a conversation. There's something else going on. So you get the feeling. You know you want to know what they're talking about. What's their story today?
Yeah. And then with this other photo at Black Cat Alley, which is a alley in Milwaukee that various Milwaukee artists did murals and stuff on. One of the workshops was to take them there and kind of discuss what they thought of the murals and stuff. So that was really
I love the colors. They're so vibrant.
Yeah,
They're
it's
very-
art within art.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Yeah.
And then the next series, the evidence?
Yeah, with that one, there's just one example that we have here, but this is how I found this image. Like, I would just kind of find various things and locations around Milwaukee that, by being there and being called evidence, I thought it was interesting that it kind of raised the meaning of it and kind of changed it to being like, oh, why is that there? Like, did something happen there and stuff? Yeah.
You're writing your own
Yeah.
story. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, the photos are beautiful. The colors are vibrant, and they make you feel something. And each one of them. Do you have these been in the gallery showing?
This one and one other one have, yes. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And so how do you decide? I know a lot of them, sounds like you've been asked to take photographs of an event or something going on. Is that generally your process to date when you decide on a series? Either you're commissioned or do you like have a process? You know what, I think I want to capture, and you sort of write it out. Like, how do you come to your series?
Well, with the Creative Trust, that wasn't really a series. That was more just freelance, candid, kind of professional stuff. But then with my own art-based series, it comes from my own idea, and then I create it, and it's unpaid and totally just for fun, and yeah.
This series here, Mind, I mean, there's so much that could be interpreted by the photos that are here, and if you could just kind of tell us what you were experiencing as you were capturing these images. You know, I really see a lot of isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this series was kind of when I was in the greatest mindset, I would find myself kind of, my thoughts would go away into like kind of darker thoughts, even when I was doing, particularly when I was doing kind of mundane things like laundry or going and getting groceries. So this is sort of about like how the mind can kind of go away into another world, and you kind of forget what's happening around you. Yeah.
Isolation is definitely written all over some of these. Yeah, it really, the message is very clear.
And do you ask the subjects, would they mind being a part of your photographs, or okay?
Yeah, these are all friends, and then they would model. And then with these ones, I would do separate studio lighting to kind of amp up the surreal nature of kind of leaving the mind and stuff.
Actually, though, I mean, now just hearing the backstory, you actually went to go feed it. Now knowing this is even friends that you asked to model for the shots, you were in a different space where, you know, either it was boredom or just separate, whatever it was. You weren't in your, you know, upbeat self kind of state. But then you went to go feed your mind, you know, even though you kind of disconnected, I'm going to go take photos, but this is what feeds you. And so then you created these stories, so you replenish. It is amazing what our mind can do.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Especially like this, the one in the basement with the is that a dryer or a laundry equipment? And you know, it almost looks like a Rembrandt. You know, you're very talented in using colors together, and that almost has a Rembrandt look about it.
Yeah, I wanted to amp up the colors on all of them just to sort of, like I said, bring up the surrealism and like how the mind can kind of create whatever it wants.
And that's somewhat of an isolated area in the basement.
Yeah.
You know, nobody else
It's an
around.
older home, so it shows sort of the stereotype of what we felt when we went into a basement of an older home.
Right.
But then there's a splash of color, the blue, that kind of pops out, that kind of brings it alive a little bit.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, most people would never walk down their stairs and see that.
Unless it's your house and that's where your laundry room is.
That's right.
Then you're like, okay.
Okay, so the
Now
next one.
Yeah, the next series, The Muse. You know, I am really a fan of nature, and those that show the sky meeting the earth, so to speak. And so, can you speak to the first photo? Looks like there's some thundering and lightning happening in the sky.
Yeah, with the series in general, kind of a similar dark mindset that I was in, but this is mostly pertaining to how you might kind of get gloomy in the winter, and how the winter and nature and gray skies and all that can kind of make you brooding, as it's called. And then I also wanted to kind of create a sublime landscape where the nature's kind of overcoming humans, making them feel small, and it's kind of overwhelming. So with the first photo, that's at Lake Michigan. It was big storm in the winter or fall, and just kind of making the human feel very small and isolated. Yeah.
It definitely portrays that. When you look at that, that's what you feel, and that's one of the signs of a true artist.
Oh, thank you.
But isn't it amazing, though, how nature can seem somewhat isolating and barren, but peaceful and relaxing and inviting at the same time? You know, and maybe what took you to that space was, you know, again, like just not feeling like 100%, and then you're representing it in your photography. But if you kind of stare at it or look at it, like, oh my gosh, like this is so inviting, it's so warm. Nature's amazing. And did you want to go into the next one? Did we go through all three of these already? The second one?
They're pretty similar. Just the middle one, it's kind of hard to see in our photos, but there's a little cap that I found just kind of by a tree, surrounded by this forest, and it's so small compared to everything else. And then the flagpole, he's so small, surrounded by the storm again, and then even the flagpole, even though that's a huge thing, it's still tiny.
Yeah, everything has its place.
Ooh, and then animals.
Oh, yes.
Here. Oh.
So cute.
So
Yeah.
are these your personal pets, or what's the story behind the pets?
The top one is called a daegu. It is a exotic rodent. Yeah, I have 3 of them. I don't really know why I got them, but they were interesting, and I found them and I adopted them, and they're crazy little creatures. And I like to photograph my pets. I have, well, the cat is my parents' one of their cats named Larry. He's crazy. And then I also have a cat of my own, and then 2 mice. So
And your cat doesn't ever try to eat your rodents?
yeah, she does, but they're caged in, so she's fine. And then I used to have snakes also. But yeah, I've had animals my whole life, and I used to ride horses. They're a really important part of me. I'm currently a dog walker also, so yeah.
I didn't even know what a daegu was until she got one, and then I looked it up, but she's also sent me a little sticker or a button that daegu can be the acronym for Don't Ever Give Up.
Oh, really interesting.
Don't ever give up spells daegu, so they're cuddly little animals. They have little poofy hair things on the end of their tail.
Yeah, they're probably about like that big.
Like a big rat?
They're smaller than a rat. Yeah, they're really sweet.
I
but
think
yeah.
there's something really kind of human about taking the least of our, the least of those. When we think of rodents, we really think of something that we want to stay away from, that is not worth humanity. And so for those that can see humanity, or to see life in something that typically would be discarded or shunned away is pretty special.
Yeah, I love my mice, even though most people probably wouldn't like mice. But yeah, they're
Well,
sweet little
Rashida,
things.
that's a very sweet way to end our time. We have about a minute left. I guess in closing, Katie, on behalf of the panel, I'd sure love to thank you for being here. And
Thanks for having
maybe
me.
if you've got, 45 seconds worth of, stuff to say, we'd love to hear it. What are you planning on doing or going forward with on this?
Well, I plan to continue my animal photos. I like to put them in a studio setting like that, and kind of just show them doing whatever they do. And then just continue the freelance photography.
And what is your website? Did I hear you have a website?
Yeah, it's www.katydezeller.com.
Wonderful.
And with that, we are out of time. I'd like to thank my co-hosts and our guest for being here on It's a Woman's World.